This video will demonstrate how to safely change the orientation of a manual G-series actuator on a 4 to 20-inch PEC Eccentric plug valve. Before beginning, pay close attention to the following warnings to prevent serious injury. When eccentric valves are mounted in a vertical pipeline or mounted in a horizontal pipeline with the plug system horizontal, there's a chance that gravity will cause the plug to swing to a lower position in the valve body when the actuator is removed. To avoid this hazard, place the plug in the lowest position before removing the actuator.
These valves are pressure vessels. On 4, 5, 6, and 10-inch valves, the same bolts hold both the actuator and the bonnet.
Removing these bolts before relieving pipeline pressure can result in personal injury or equipment damage. Relieve pipeline pressure before removing the actuator. To change the orientation of this unit, you should have the instruction and operation manual, applicable combination wrenches, flat-tip screwdrivers, a dead blow or soft hammer, and all appropriate personal protective equipment. Submerged service actuators are slightly different from non-submerged, as they have an additional housing and top cover to prevent debris from entering the actuator. Valves 24 inches and larger have additional steps to address lock screws. For instructions on adjusting the actuator orientation on a submerged or large valve, see the instruction manual. On 4 to 20-inch valves, the actuator can be mounted in 60-degree increments around the valve shaft without the need to install a new gear sector. However, if a 90 or 270-degree adjustment is necessary, a new gear sector will be required. We will show you how to install a new gear sector later in this video. Discontinue flow and relieve pipeline pressure before beginning. On size 4 to 20-inch valves, remove the lock nut, spring washers, and flat washers from the plug stud. Remove the screws fastening the adapter to the valve. Lift the actuator and adapter off the valve. Do not turn the hand wheel while the actuator is removed from the valve. If a 60, 120, 180, 240, or 300-degree turn is required, reassembly can be done from here. Rotate the actuator into position. Set the actuator on the valve so the valve shaft slides into the actuator gear sector. Fasten the actuator adapter to the valve with screws. Slide the pointer and wrenching nut down the plug stud so it rests on top of the gear sector, making sure the pointer indicates the current valve position. Place the spring washers on the plug stud as shown in the instruction manual, making sure the washers are assembled in the correct configuration. Screw the lock nut down the plug stud until the spring washers are completely compressed. Then back the nut off one full turn. Test the actuator to confirm the valve opens and closes properly. Pipeline flow can now be restored. If you need to change the orientation of the actuator on a PEC eccentric valve to 90 or 270 degrees from the standard position, a different gear sector is needed. Notice the hex opening in the center is turned slightly to the left on the 90 or 270 degree gear. First, scribe corresponding lines on the actuator cover and housing. Remove the lock nut, spring washers, wrenching nut, and pointer from the plug stud. Remove the screws fastening the adapter to the valve. Lift the actuator and adapter off the valve. Then, remove the cover screws and the cover from the actuator. Note that one edge of the gear is either against or close to the stop screw in the side of the gear housing.
This is where the other gear should be after the actuator has been rotated 90 degrees and the new gear installed.
Now, lift the gear sector out of the actuator. Using the new gear, liberally grease the teeth and journals, taking care to cover all machined surfaces to prevent corrosion. Install the new gear in place over the plug hex. Then turn the hand wheel to make sure the edge of the gear is close to or will touch the stop screw. Check the gasket for damage or wear, and if a new one is needed, replace it. Make sure the scribe marks line up. Then install the top cover on the housing and fasten the cover screws. Turn the actuator over and remove the 4 screws attaching the valve adapter to the housing. Pry the housing loose from the valve adapter and turn it 90 degrees clockwise or counterclockwise, whichever is needed to ensure the hand wheel will be in the correct orientation on the valve. Line up the bolt holes and install and tighten the 4 screws. Turn the actuator back to the upright position and set the actuator on the valve so the actuator shaft slides into the gear sector. Fasten the actuator adapter to the valve with the screws. Put the valve in the closed position. Slide the pointer and wrenching nut down the plug stud so it rests on top of the gear sector. The pointer should indicate the correct valve position. Place the spring washers on the plug stud as shown in Figure 4 of the instruction manual, making sure the washers are assembled in the correct configuration. Screw the lock nut down the plug stud until it's tight and the spring washers are completely compressed, then back the nut off one full turn. It may be necessary to adjust position stop after changing the gear sector and reinstalling the actuator in a new position. The open position stop is an integral non-adjustable stop in the actuator cover. The closed position stop is an adjustable stop screw located on the side of the actuator housing on size 6 and size 12 actuators, or on the end of the extension cap on size 16. Adjust the closed position stop before putting the valve back into service. Loosen the jam nut on the closed position stop screw, then turn the closed position stop screw counterclockwise about 1.5 turns. Close the valve with the torque specified in the IOM. While maintaining the valve closing torque, turn the closed position stop adjusting screw just until resistance is felt as it contacts the gear. Lock the stop in this position by tightening the jam nut against the actuator. Test the actuator to confirm the valve opens and closes properly. Pipeline flow can now be restored. If you have any questions about how to change the orientation of a manual G-Series actuator on a PEC Eccentric valve, please contact your local DeZURIK representative.